Encounter today.
Thank you. Good to be with you, brother.
I was telling you before we got started, our kids were raised on your videos, so I got a lot of blame that goes in your direction and how my kids behave. No, but you've been a part of our house, and we've been wanting, since we've been doing interviews, we've been wanting to interview you. How long have you been doing this?
Okay. Just about 3 minutes now. Oh, you talking?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've been a Baptist preacher 50 years. I taught high school science 15 years. And I moved to Pensacola, Florida in 1989, and that's when I started the creation ministry, teaching all over the world on creation, evolution, dinosaurs, defending the Bible as being scientifically accurate. So 1989, I started, traveled all over 37 countries, all 50 states, and stirred up a lot of trouble for the devil. And now I've been in Lenox, Alabama for 8 years now. So 8 years and 4 days. Somebody gave us 140 acres here, an old gravel pit. It's amazing.
And everybody can come there, Dinosaur Adventureland, and there's all kinds of amazing things there to do.
We try to make everything have a science lesson with a spiritual application. So we have probably 500 science lessons we teach that are just amazing, like Jesus would teach. Consider the lilies, consider the sparrows, consider the ravens. There's things to learn from science that'll draw you closer to the Lord. Our science center is 12,000 square feet, all based on the 7 days of creation. Day one, let there be light. We got cool science experiments about light and electricity. We have a Tesla coil, 300,000 volt Tesla coil, Van de Graaff generator. Light can be reflected, refracted, diffused, but nobody knows what it is. Nobody knows what is light. Give me a jar of it, please. What's it weigh? Nobody knows what it is. God said, let there be light. He said he is light. I think it's beyond our comprehension. Then day two is all about God made air. We have a high-pressure hyperbaric chamber you can get in. We have a Bernoulli blower that we can blow smoke rings, huge smoke rings. It's all kind of I don't remember all the stuff we got in there. Somebody else does the tours of the science center. But we have a taxidermy collection, probably the largest in Alabama.
Wow.
A guy from North Carolina donated it. We have full-size bear in there, all kinds of stuff. There are 8 different kinds of squirrels in the world, and we have all 8 of them taxidermied here in our science center. And they might have had a common ancestor called a squirrel. That does not prove they're related to butterflies.
That somehow makes so much more sense. And by the way, we're going to put a link in the description. We encourage everyone to go and experience this for yourself. Take your family, take your ministry, take your youth group, your children's ministry. It'll definitely be life-changing. And I got to tell you, I don't know how many times I've watched your videos over and over and over again. And I'm always amazed at the volume of information, but the way that it sticks. Whose idea was it for you to be this heavy on slides? Because at the time you were doing this, no one else was doing slides like this.
Well, when I started, got interested in creation, I read all the books by Henry Morris and Dwayne Gish and all the stuff from Institute for Creation Research, and they're really got amazing stuff. But after you listen to him speak for a half hour, you say, wow, what did he say? He uses all the big words, I said, we need somebody to dumb this down 4th grade level. And I live permanently 4th grade level. So I said, let's just simplify things, make it where people understand it. And I started with a slide projector. I started with actually pictures. I would take a picture, blow it up, take it to Office Depot, have it laminated, and I put pictures up all over the wall. And when I'm talking, go around, point to the pictures. Then I thought, wait a minute, they make a slide projector, a circular ring of slides. So but every time I added slide number 27, I had to move all the rest of them back a notch. I ended up with 12 carousels of slides I had to carry with me when I traveled and preached. And then somebody, praise God, came out with PowerPoint. I said, oh man, I'm in hog heaven now. I think I have 50 or 60,000 slides that I use to teach different things about creation and defend the Bible as being scientifically accurate.
And you did more than,
I tell people,
you did more than travel too. You actually went into communities and helped them change the textbooks in their communities.
Well, yeah, I did all I could with the public schools. I spoke at public schools, and still I'm willing to. But I think my mom was a public school teacher, retired from teaching public school. My brother, older brother, just retired after 35 years of teaching public school. I love helping. There are some lies in these textbooks, brother. The kids are being taught just plain lies. The kids are being taught that all the layers of the earth are different ages, and they've got names for them, Jurassic and Triassic and all that. Well, I taught earth science 15 years. And when I tell the atheists, I debate them all the time, at 356 debates now, I say, guys, you're telling me this top layer of dirt is younger. would you please tell me, where did it come from? How can it be younger? Did it come from outer space? It baffles them. They never stopped and thought about it. That geologic column that they teach is baloney. It doesn't exist anywhere in the world, except the textbooks. There is no geologic column. There's no such thing as a Jurassic age. I say, guys, every speck of dirt on the planet's the same age, whether it's 6,000 or 6 trillion. It's all the same age. Moving it from here to here doesn't change the age of it. Watch, I'll show you. I have a coffee cup that was made 2 years ago. This coffee cup is 2 years old, made out of clay. I'm going to put this fossil on top of it. Wow, that makes this fossil fish less than 2 years old. Doesn't it?
Wow.
They don't get it. I have so much fun making fun of them, brother. I really have a blast.
Well, that's what I want us to get into. First, I want us to react. We're going to talk about some of the major lies that are in the textbooks. We'll dive into the fossil record and how to give an answer for that as well. Radiometric dating, all those things. But first, in recent media, there's been this stir between this conversation between Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson, where Rogan kind of just flippantly brings up evolution, and Tucker Carlson throws out this bomb, and I thought I'd get your reaction to it. Evan, if we could take a look at this, go ahead and hit play.
If evolution is real, and if there is this constant, I don't know, but it's visible. Like, you can measure it in certain animals.
You can measure adaptation.
Yeah.
But there's no evidence that evolution. In fact, I think we've kind of given up on the idea of evolution. The theory of evolution as articulated by Darwin is like kind of not true. Right?
In what sense?
Well, in the most basic sense, the idea that, all life emerged from a single cell organism and over time, and there would be a fossil record of that, and there's not. And
there's not a fossil record of transitionary species, like species that are adapting to its environment.
There's tons of record of adaptation, and you see it in your own life. I mean, I have a lot of dogs. I see adaptation in dogs, through the through litter to litter. But no, there's no evidence at all that zero, that people evolve seamlessly from a single cell amoeba. No, there's not. There's no.
So let's talk about that. I want to get your reaction. I don't know if you've seen that yet or not. Let's talk about these transitionary species, or whatever it's called. Whether or not is there evidence for what Joe Rogan's talking about?
Well, he made 5 or 6 problems right at the first few sentences. It would take an hour to dissect. First of all, he said evolution is real. That depends on what you mean by evolution. That's a slippery word. And I start off my debates. I say, guys, we're going to talk about evolution, but I want to explain exactly what are we talking about. Because you'd have to have, first of all, cosmic evolution, the origin of time, space, matter. Where did matter come from? Did it come from a Big Bang where a dot the size of an atom exploded? That's what they teach, the Big Bang. Everything in the universe fit in a dot smaller than an atom. That means all the energy, all the heat. What's the total heat of all the stars in the world, in the universe? A lot. That was all in that dot. To believe that all came from a dot is stupid. Tell them I said so. Real stupid to believe such a thing. So there's no evidence for cosmic evolution. Then, if cosmic evolution happened, which it did not, you'd have to have chemical evolution. Because with their stupid Big Bang theory, the Big Bang would produce hydrogen, maybe a little helium, maybe a little tiny bit of lithium. Those are the first 3 elements on the periodic table, which has 92 elements. How do you get uranium, platinum, and gold and silver out of hydrogen gas? You cannot fuse past iron. They say, well, in the stars, there's enough pressure and heat to change the elements. Well, now you got to have stars before you have the elements. And the stars are made out of the elements. So which came first, the chicken or the egg here? Thirdly, you have to have stellar evolution. Nobody's ever seen a star form. You can imagine it happened if you want, but it's not science. Science where we can observe, study, test, and demonstrate. Then you have to have organic evolution. Life has to get started somehow from somewhere. There's no evidence of how life can be made from non-living material. One atheist said, well, Hovind, if a bunch of scientists ever produce life in the lab, what are you going to say then? I'm going to say, well, I guess that proved it took intelligence to make life, didn't it? Then you'd have to have what's called macroevolution, where an animal changes to a different kind of animal. That's never been seen. It's a belief. Evolution is a religion. Now, number 6, microevolution. I think that's a lousy term, and they probably shouldn't use that term, but they do. Microevolution is variation within the same kind. There are now 339 different kinds of dogs, and they probably had a common ancestor called a dog. It doesn't prove they're related to potatoes. But they make these stupid family trees and teach this to the kids. I'll show you. Here's what they say. Boys and girls, the human, the bird, and the dinosaur, and the ladybug all have a common ancestor. That's not science. That's propaganda. They put these charts in our textbooks like it's some kind of science. The textbook says all the forms of life on Earth today are descended from a common ancestor. That's not science. That's a religious statement, a dogma statement. And then it says no traces of those events remain. They make these silly family trees. I got a big one here, big version of it. And they've got everything connected back to a common ancestor, which was a single-celled creature like an amoeba or protozoa, bacteria or something. That's not science. I say, look, guys, there are hundreds, maybe thousands of kinds of butterflies. They might have had a common ancestor called a butterfly. But your textbook says the butterfly is related to humans and fish and birds. This is not science. This is artwork. The butterfly related to a frog. Oh, yeah. That's not science. Anybody can draw lines on paper. You want to connect a butterfly and a fish and say they got a common ancestor? So that's why when you talk about the word evolution, you have to define exactly what are we talking about. Are we talking about variations within the kind? Certainly that happens. Are the variations limited? Yes. That's what they'll never admit. They've been trying to get bigger and bigger cows for a long time. You know, give more beef. Do you think they'll ever get a cow as big as Texas? I bet there's a limit somewhere before you get to Texas size. They won't admit that, though. Yes, variations happen, but they're limited, and the further you get from the norm, the more problems you have.
So they have this concept that natural selection somehow miraculously creates, instead of what it actually does, is it simply selects from information that already exists.
Right. Selects what's already there. It can't create anything. Then, so the problem with his Joe Rogan thing, he didn't define what he's talking about by evolution. So, secondly, he said there's a fossil record. I said, no. There is no fossil record. There are fossils by the trillions, but none of them talk, and none of them have a date stamped on them. When you find a fossil, all you really know is it died. You cannot prove it had any children. You cannot prove it had any children that were different. And if this one was evolving into something else and is a transitional fossil, who did it marry? Don't you have to have two in the same place of the opposite sex, except in San Francisco, and they got to find each other, and now they got to take over the whole population. Evolution doesn't happen. I'm sorry, it's a religion. Then he mentioned adaptation. Certainly animals adapt to their environment based on certain limits. If you took all the dogs in the world and turned them loose in Alaska, come back in 5 years. Most of the fancy breeds we developed wouldn't survive the first 20 minutes, okay? My wife's pug wouldn't last 5 minutes. You can use pugs for bear hunting, though. A lot of people don't know this. My wife has a pug, and you can bear hunt with him because the bear will die laughing or he'll choke on him. Either way, you can kill the bear. But then the dogs with long fur would tend to survive better in cold weather. So after 5 years, you're probably going to have a whole bunch of wolf-type animals up there. That's all that's going to survive. Nature didn't create anything. It selected a pre-existing gene code for long hair. They already had hair. I tell you what, put a bird up there, see if it'll develop hair. No, it won't. So things can adapt to their environment if they already have the gene code in there, which is really complicated. And nature selects. It doesn't create, it selects. Artificial selection is where the humans do the selecting. And the farmer says, I want that cow to breed with that cow. So we get, A, B, C, whatever, more milk or more beef. But they're limited to what's already available in the
So
gene
what
code.
is the evidence they're operating on? I don't know if it was you or someone else who offered a reward or an amount of money for anyone who could produce actual evidence of Darwinian evolution. I don't know if you remember that or not.
Yeah,
that was you?
Yeah. Years ago, a lawyer said, Brother Hovind, I love your ministry. I'll support you. I'll back you up $250,000 for anybody who can provide real scientific evidence for evolution. And we made that offer for many years. Nobody has any. Evolution is a religious belief. It's a fairy tale, and you're welcome to believe it. I say, guys, I don't care what you believe, but don't call it science, and don't make me and everybody else pay to have your religion taught in our schools. Evolution's nothing but a religion that they believe in it very strongly. So do the Muslims, so do the Hindus, so do the Buddhists. I mean, a lot of people believe their religion strongly. Some people fight for it. Okay. But it's not science. That's all.
Well, I'm sure somebody tried to collect on that $250,000 at some point in time. Did you have any takers who tried? They certainly failed. And if so, what was their case?
The only ones that even made an attempt were to come in and say, what exactly do you mean by evolution? What exactly would you take as evidence? They always try to put the burden back on me. I say, guys, I'm not the one telling everybody in the country they have to pay for these charts to be taught in the school. You want everybody to pay for your religion to be taught. The burden of proof's on you. You show me what's the best evidence you know of for evolution. I don't have to defend the Bible. I'm not asking the Bible to be taught in public schools. I want you to defend your religion. And they always run away and say, well, I'll get back with you. And they don't have any. There is no evidence anywhere for evolution.
So
if you got any listeners that think there is, tell them, give me a call. 855-BIG-DINO, extension 4. My tech guy, Joseph, will schedule a debate. Love to have another one tonight.
You are known for these debates where you would challenge 3 professors from one university. I remember seeing one debate, if I'm not mistaken, 3 professors from one university. And I think this was before they knew what they were getting into. Are you still getting these requests, or are they kind of a little sheepish now?
Well, I had 60 last year. I've had 356 debates total. Yeah, it's hard to find one. Here's what you should do. Call a professor who believes in evolution and say, will you debate Kent Hovind? He will say no. Say, thank you. Then call my tech guy, Joseph, and say, add this guy to the list. We've got a list of people who've refused to debate. And then, get to it. In North Carolina, get all your professors within 50 miles, or atheists, and ask them face-to-face, will you debate Kent Hovind? They'll say no. Make a list of all their names and where they teach, and then schedule me to come speak up there at your church, and you can run a full-page ad in the newspaper. Come here, Kent Hovind, speak. The following professors refuse to debate him, and list all their names.
It's a sight to see as these professors sit with mouths agape, jaws on the floor, as you simply present common sense to refute the arguments. But when sticking with the fossil record very quickly, what they refer to is there seems to be this, these layers with smaller on the bottom, and then it goes kind of bigger and bigger and bigger. And like you said, they say that's older and then newer. So what is the response to that? How did this all settle in different layers?
There is no geologic column. The whole thing was invented in 1830. They made up this idea that the layers are different ages and they're index fossils. It doesn't exist anywhere in the world. Charles Lyell and other people got involved in this. They hated the Bible. And if you add up the dates that are given right in the Bible teaches the earth is about 6,000 years old, not billions. And so they wanted billions of years for their theory to be true. And so they made up this crazy geologic column. I ask guys all the time in debates, guys, you're telling me the top layer is younger. Oh, yeah. I say, tell me, where did all the new material come from to make these layers? Is it coming from outer space? I mean, you're telling me the Holocene era is only 10,000 years old, but the Proterozoic is 2.5 billion. Oh, where was all the Holocene dirt hanging out for 2.4999 billion years? They're stumped. There's no such thing as a geologic column. All the layers are the same age. All over the world, petrified trees are found standing up, connecting all the layers. They're common, called polystrata fossils. There are thousands of them in the world. One tree, petrified, standing up, running through all the different layers. I say, guys, I have a simple question. How long does a dead tree stand around in your neighborhood before it falls over? A couple years, max. Petrified trees in the vertical position. There's a bunch here in Alabama, a whole bunch up in Canada, Nova Scotia, Canada. Gravel pits, coal mines have them all the time. Petrified trees standing up. The layers all formed in 1 year. Each layer is from a different tide. When the tide changes going up and down, the water rushing in and out of the tidal bump is what makes all the layers. The layers form sideways. If I flip this thing over, it's going to make 20 or 30 layers in a few seconds. Are the layers different ages? No, they're all in here at the same time. The geologic column is one of the cruelest jokes ever pulled off on students in history. It does not exist anywhere. It's baloney. All the layers are the same age.
So you're connecting then the layers were created in a massive flood.
Well, see, right. If the moon is about this big compared to the earth, okay, the moon is holding a bump called the high tide, and we're constantly spinning around. So The moon is holding that bump, the high tide. We're spinning around. So from the east, it's always sucking water in at the same speed the Earth is turning the other way, because the bump stays right under the moon. They've done studies on all this, and they say, look, today's oceans average about 2 miles deep. If you pushed all the continents down and smoothed out the world, so the water had to cover everything, it'd be 1.5 miles. There's enough water right now in the oceans to cover the Earth 1.5 miles deep. And if the Earth were covered in water, the tide would not get interrupted by banging into continents. Right now, the tide starts to come up, bangs into Florida. If all the continents were gone, the tide would become harmonic and start going up and down 200 feet instead of 5 or 6 foot. Well, if the water came up 200 feet, where's all the water coming from to fill that bump? Sideways, all 4 sides. And from the east, it's always pulling water in at the same speed the Earth is turning the other way. At the North Pole, the Earth is turning 0 miles an hour, but at the equator, it's 1,037.6, depending on your altitude. So if the water's going 1,000 miles an hour, it's going to take all the rocks and roll them against each other and round them off, which is why we live in a gravel pit right here. And rocks all over our gravel pit are smooth, rounded off. They call them river rock. No, teacher, this is from the flood. It goes from here to North Carolina. 7 layers of gravel from here to your house. Ask around, where's the nearest gravel pit to your house, brother? I guarantee you got one within 5 miles. And they're rounded rocks. And the 7 layers from Alabama to North Carolina. They were formed by the moon holding that tidal bump. And during Noah's flood, the water is coming up and down, which Noah would not even feel that. It's rushing in and out. And it's a sideways movement of the water that makes all the layers in 1 year.
There's
no such thing as a geological
In fact,
column.
I think I've seen you show pictures of a petrified tree upside down going through all the layers of the geologic column.
There's a hillside in France where they were digging and they found a whole bunch of petrified trees upside down running through all the layers.
Which again is further
Say,
evidence of the flood.
Yeah, well, did the trees grow the wrong way looking for sunlight for millions of years?
Probably not. Probably not.
Probably
so
not.
Now there's going to be people watching this in the comments. I want to know what you think, guys, as you're watching this, by the way. But one of the common objections evolutionists often cite is the genetic similarities between different species. And they compare that between humans, between apes, and all that kind of stuff. So what is the believer to, how do they answer that when there are genetic similarities between species?
Well, sure. That's because they got the same designer. Ford trucks and Chevy trucks both have round wheels. That's a design that works. Isn't it better than square, triangle, or octagon wheels? Yeah. And so if I'm not good with computers, but Microsoft PowerPoint has millions of lines of code. Microsoft Word probably also has millions of lines of code. And I'd be willing to bet Microsoft PowerPoint spell check has thousands of identical lines of code to Microsoft Word spell check. The same guys are writing the code. That's a code that works to spell check. It's not proof of ancestry, it's proof of common designer. The code required for a human being to close his finger down like this, just to pick up a coffee cup, to close your finger requires thousands of lines of code to tell the flexor muscles to tighten up at just the right amount and then hold it there. And to feel the pressure from the fingertip going back and telling you I've got enough pressure, there are thousands of lines of code just to bend your finger. I'd bet monkeys have the same lines of code to bend their finger. Because they got to bend their finger like we do. They got to pick stuff up. It's not proof of ancestry. It's proof of common designer.
Wow.
I don't know how they can't get it.
Yeah, well, because they love their sin. I think that is. What do you think is the reason, before we dive into radiometric dating, that kind of thing? Why do you think people hang on so tightly to this theory without any evidence?
Well, there's only 2 choices. There's a God or there isn't. If there's a God, he might come with some rules, like thou shalt not. They don't want those rules. That's the whole problem. They don't want God telling them what to do. I asked one atheist, I said, if I could demonstrate to you there really is a God, what would that do? He said, man, that would change everything for me. Yeah, I agree. Well, I'm sorry, there is a God. I tell people, if you watch my video series, 18 hours on creation evolution, $50 for the whole thing, go to drdino.com, DRDINO. You can order a whole video series, watch it, copy it, send it back, get your money back.
He's not kidding either,
Brother,
by
I
the
used
way.
to loan my DVDs.
He's not kidding. You can do that.
What's that? Oh, yeah. I used to loan my DVDs out. I learned right away, Baptists especially don't steal, but they borrow and never return. So, no, I won't loan it to you. I'll sell it to you when you're done. Get your money back by bringing it back. So, if you'll watch my video series, when you get done, you're going to say, wow, the Bible is true. And then about a week later, you're going to sit up in bed in the middle of the night and say, oh, no, the Bible's true. This changes everything. And it does. If there's a God, you better find out who he is and find out what he wants and do it, because you're going to be judged by that guy, Judgment Day. Find out what the rules are and obey them. So that's what the atheists don't want. They don't want God telling them what to do. It wouldn't matter how much evidence you showed them. They don't want
Well, we're going to provide a link in the
willingly-
description for that series. And you have it digitally as well. You can buy the digital copies of it. And I want to tell everybody watching this, get it. It is a must have for your library, for your family, and you will watch it over and over and over again, and you'll be able to share it with your family. Another, Dr. Hovind, another common objection that critics cite is the dating that they have of these fossils and the age of the earth. What are some of the errant forms of dating? I know there are different ways that they date things. What are those different ways that they date things, and what is the response to that?
Well, it started off just simply making up numbers with the geologic column, okay? And they would say, well, how long would it take to accumulate this much dirt? Oh, probably, a million years. Okay, let's give this. So they gave the Jurassic, Triassic, Mississippian, Devonian, all based on just
pulling it out of the air.
It takes for study. Pull it out of the air. See, they say, well, what about carbon dating? Oh, stop. None of the radioactive dating methods, carbon-14, carbon-13, potassium, argon, rubidium, strontium, lead-208, lead-206, all the radiometric dating methods were invented after 1950. But they were dating these layers way before that. So don't tell me you know the age based on radiometric dating. That was just invented in the last 70 years. They date things based on the geologic column. That's how they're really dated. What do I do? On my seminar part 7, I give a long answer to that in here, question-answer series in here. I talk about radiometric. Let me call it up for you here. Let me tell you the problems with carbon dating. Here we go, right here. Carbon dating, fossils are really dated by their position in the geologic column. If I took this to any university and said, how old is this fish fossil? First question they would ask, where did you find it? What difference does that make? Well, we need to know where you found it to know what layer it came from so we can date it by the strata. Everything's dated by what strata they come from, and it doesn't exist anywhere in the world. They made it up. I say, guys, if the top layer is younger, where did it come from? Outer space? There's such an obvious assumption with carbon dating. Let me give you an example. If you walked into a room and found a candle burning on a table, here's the candle, it's burning. And I ask you the question, when was it lit? How long has it been burning? You say, I don't know. I just walked in. Okay, well, let's do some science. Empirical science. Let's measure how tall it is. So we measure the candle. We find out it is 7 inches tall. Nobody argues that candle is 7 inches tall. Okay, when was it lit? Well, that doesn't tell me. Okay, let's do some more science. Let's measure how fast it burns. We get Olympic stopwatches and 400 judges to measure that thing, and we all agree it's burning an inch an hour. Here we got 2 facts nobody argues about. It is 7 inches tall. It's burning an inch an hour. When was it lit? You can't tell me unless you make some assumptions now. Well, let's see. Assumption number 1, how tall was it? Was it 11 inches tall or 11 miles tall? That would change your age, wouldn't it? Okay. And secondly, has it always burned at the same rate? Do you know this inch an hour has been going on for forever? Could it have been skinnier at the top? Could it have been more wind in the room, more oxygen in the room? Could it have burned faster? With carbon dating, it's all based on you get a fossil like a piece of coal or something. I got one here somewhere, and you want to know how much carbon-14 is in it compared to the carbon-12, because carbon-14 decays to carbon-12, like the candle is burning to get shorter. Well, you can measure how many atoms of each are in that thing. That's not a question. They get accurate numbers. I don't argue about that. But they miss the bigger picture. How much was in it when it started? Has it always decayed at the same rate? You cannot possibly know either of those. That's why all the radioactive dates they get wild numbers. They've dated living animals and found them 21,000 years old. Then when you show them, hey, this was a sample of a living animal. Oh, let me try it again. Let me test it again. But had they not known, they would have kept the 21,000 years. Sometimes they'll get two samples from the same fossil, same animal, and get different numbers. Go to two different laboratories, get two different numbers. Radiometric dating would not have been feasible if the geologic column had not been erected first. They're all dated based upon the geologic column. This guy said, fossils have been and still are the best and most accurate method of dating and correlating the rocks. How do they date the rocks? By the fossils, by their geologic column. Apart from very modern examples, I can think of no cases of radioactive decay being used to date fossils. Anyway, I cover for probably 30 minutes on my video number 7 how this radioactive dating is based on just such common sense, wild assumptions that a freshman law student could say, look, that ain't science. Don't tell me that's evidence. So anyway, we go through the radioactive. We know the amount of C14 in the fossils changes based on radiation from the sun. There's quite a few factors that affect carbon-14 accumulation or production. And then the decay rate can also be affected by things. Anyway, so no, I wouldn't trust carbon dating or any of the dating methods any further than I could throw an elephant.
It's used so often, though, for a variety of things. Is there any time when it's actually accurate? Is it useful in any form of dating whatsoever? Or is it just kind of a sham all the way through?
Well, if you already know the age of it and you carbon date it, it might be good for something. Right? You already know the age of it.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. And now another thing they say about the age of the Earth is they're talking about the light of the stars would take so many light years in order to travel from where it is in order for us to be able to see it here on the Earth. What's the response to that?
Well, the Bible dates clearly teach the Earth is about 6,000 years old. And the Bible says God made the Earth first. And then on day 3, he made the stars and stretched them out into place. 17 times in the Bible, it says God stretched out the heavens. He made the Earth first and then the stars. There's a whole lot of stars out there, and they're a long ways away, no question. Bunch of stars. We can't even count them. About every 30 years or so, a star blows up, called a nova or a supernova. Nobody's ever seen one form. We've only got about 300 supernovas they've ever spotted. Well, that would be only 9,000 years. Shouldn't there be like millions of them? We cover all this on video 7 also. But here's the problem. They're asking the wrong question. Supernova, let's see, right here. How they measure the distance to those stars is real. I taught trigonometry for years. I'll debate them all on this. You cannot measure the distance to a star beyond about 100 light years. Anything more than that becomes real sketchy with your mathematics. And I'll talk about that if they'd like for a long time. I got stuff on that. Let's see. Parallax trigonometry it's called, okay? You have to know two distances, and to figure with trigonometry, the third distance. You have to know two angles in one side or two sides in one angle, or you can't figure the rest of the triangle out. So if I want to know how far it is to a star, and I've got two telescopes that are 16 inches apart, they're both looking at this point, how far out of parallel are they? That's the angle you're dealing with, okay? How far out of, they would be parallel, you bend them in so they're both looking at point 3. How far out of parallel are they? Well, it depends. If it gets too far away, you can't measure how that angle is. It gets too small. The angle's too small. Parallax trigonometry is a well-known phenomenon. We talk about all that in the seminar part 7. Okay, the Earth is only 8,000 miles across. So the farthest away you can get from anybody on this planet is 8,000 miles, straight through the Earth. So if you've got two telescopes on opposite sides of the world and they're both looking at a star trying to calculate the distance, the base of your triangle is only 8,000 miles. How far can you measure to that third point and call it accurate? So what they've done to enlarge the base of the triangle, you look at the star in January, go all the way around the sun, and look at it again in June. Well, now you got a 93 million mile radius. That's how far the sun is away. That's 8 light minutes. It takes light 8 minutes to get from the sun to the Earth. Okay? So the diameter of this orbit as we go around is 16 light minutes. 1 year has 526,000 minutes in it. That's 1 year. So if you want to measure 1 light year using Earth's orbit around the sun, the biggest circle we can get, what's 16 compared to 526 million? Not much. That's like having two telescopes 16 inches apart, representing Earth's orbit around the sun, And you're going to measure the distance to a star 525,000 inches away. That's 8 miles. And all you know is how far out of parallel your telescopes are. I'm not sure you can tell exactly where you were 6 months ago on opposite sides of the sun to even get a good base number. 16 light minutes is our orbit around the sun. That makes an angle out there of 0.017 degrees. That's a real skinny angle. That's to measure 1 light year. 1. They're telling me they know 100 light years or 1 billion light years. To measure 100 light years, let's see, if I had 2 surveyors 16 inches apart in Pensacola, both looking at a dot in Chicago, 830 miles away. Now, they don't know it's 830 miles. All they know is they're both in Pensacola, shoulder to shoulder, 16 inches apart. They're both looking at this dot in Chicago. How far out of parallel are their telescopes? That's to find 1 light year. They want to tell me 15 billion light years. I say you're lying or you're stupid. You cannot measure that stuff. The Bible says 17 times God stretched out the heavens. They're claiming they can now measure 326 light years. Okay, I doubt it, but I'll give them 326. You can't measure billions. Plus, when the Bible says God stretched out the heavens, he said it 17 times. You can get all this on video number 7. This guy says we can now measure to 482 million miles. 82 million. I don't think so. That's only 82,000 light years. I don't believe that for a second, but okay. You can't measure millions or billions of light years. 82,000 is not the same as billions. Congress doesn't understand that, but it ain't the same. To them, it's all the same. Just add a few zeros, everything's fine. So, okay? I wouldn't trust. But even if the stars are billions of light years away, they're completely missing the point. The stars probably are billions of light years away. I wouldn't argue that. We can't measure it. But even if they are, that doesn't prove they're billions of billions of years old. See, a light year is a distance. It's not a time. It's a distance. How far can light run in a year? 300, whatever the number is, a light year. That's a distance. It's not a time. So if God could have created the stars yesterday where they are and have the light already in transit if he wanted, and we'd look at it and say, wow, that's a long ways away. How old was Adam on day 1 of his life? 0. Yeah. Did he look 0? No, he's a full-grown man. He could walk, talk, name all the animals, and get married first day. Had a already loaded computer. He could already speak. His language was already in there, his computer. He already knew all kinds of things. God pre-programmed. It has to. So God made the universe, and the stars are already out there, and they're already shining, and maybe the light, maybe it started here, and he stretched them out, so there'd be a red shift as the star is being dragged away from the earth. It'd be like if a car moves past if you're listening to a car go by, when it comes in, it compresses the sound. When it leaves, it refracts the sound, so you hear a Doppler effect. It drops in pitch. That's called the red shift with stars. They say, look, Hovind, all the stars have a red shift. Okay, I think you're right. That proves they're moving away. I think that's probably a logical conclusion. Well, that proves they're millions of years old. No. They might have started moving away yesterday. God might have made them and stretched them out to space like he said he did, and maybe that's why they've got a red shift instead of billions of light years away. So the question they're asking is the wrong one. I got it in here someplace. How the speed of light and all that. So we don't know what light is, let alone it always travels the same speed. So let's see right here. They're asking, how did the light from the star get here? That's the wrong question. God said he stretched out the heavens. He made the stars after the earth. So the real question is, how did the star get from here to there? Not how did the light get from there to here. Totally wrong question.
Amazing. And again, everybody, you can get these slides at the website. The link is in the description of this video. We encourage everybody to get it. What are some of the other lies that are currently being taught in the textbook that now, decades later, you've been doing this for such a long time, you are shocked that they're still there and they're still being taught in our public schools?
It's amazing. I've got a huge collection of public school textbooks right around me here. I taught earth science, biology, and physical science for 15 years. They are still teaching that the baby growing inside the mother has gill slits. Embryology. Tell you what, type in best evidence for evolution. And one of them that always comes up is this idea of embryology. They say the human embryo has gills like a fish. This is line number 12. If you get my video number 4, I get the whole series for $50. Get video 4 for $10. Those aren't gills. Evidence of evolution. Embryology. Here it is. Khan Academy, just a few months ago. Evidence of evolution. Evidence of evolution. Embryology. 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 This is in all the textbooks I'm aware of.
Khan Academy, by the way, before you continue, Khan Academy is a very popular homeschool resource used by, I don't know how many families across the United States.
Well, and they're brainwashing your kids. You better watch what they're learning. They made up this stupid phrase, Haeckel did back in 1830, ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny. What's that mean? Well, the growth of the baby inside the mother, the baby goes through different stages. It starts off as a single cell, a fertilized egg, and it goes through stages, and we finally till it's ready to be born. Then it recapitulates, means it reenacts, phylogeny or evolution. No, that's crazy. It says the presence of fish-like structures in different embryos shows these animals have evolved from fish. What? They got these pictures. It's in all the biology textbooks. Siegmund Freud made up this whole idea about the ontogeny. He was an atheist and a moron, okay? They say the baby has gills like a fish. Those little folds of skin are not gill slits, okay? They develop into bones in the ear and the glands in the throat. They have nothing to do with breathing. Never. I've seen fat folks got 5 or 6 chins. They can't breathe through any of them but the top one. You know, it's wrong to run around on your wife, but I can give Bill Clinton a little slap, okay? Haeckel made up this idea. 1868, he was worried. Darwin's book came out 1859, and Darwin said, we should find evidence for my theory. 10 years later, there's no evidence, so they began to make some. Haeckel, through his fraudulent family tree, he knew there was a gap between the first living organism, single cell, and it, so he made up some evidence, and we'll go for that on video number 4, okay? But here's what happened. They made up this stupid idea that the embryo has gill slits. He took a dog and a human embryo and made a drawing of what they look like. Then he made big charts of all of his drawings. Let's see, the dog, the rat, the turtle, the fish, the pig, the sheep. And he faked the drawings and made them look alike. On top are his drawings. Underneath are actual photographs of that same animal. Now, he's either a lousy artist or he's a liar. And we know he was a good artist and a liar. His own university held a trial and said, Haeckel, you lied. He said, well, I know. I made up some stuff. Yep. He said, I should feel condemned, but everybody else lies too. So despite being proven fraudulent in 1874, they're still teaching it. Haeckel's frauds were proven to be fake in 1874. And here's the textbook. Let's see, right? Get some of the modern textbooks.
Are we sure he's not Biden's speechwriter, by the way? Are we sure he didn't become, are we sure he didn't become Biden's speechwriter?
Oh, might have been. Biden's speechwriter. Biden can't even read his own speeches, brother. He doesn't even know where he is, okay? They're still using Haeckel's fake drawings. I can't believe it's in so many textbooks. This whole idea of embryology is not true. I was in a debate with one atheist, and I went through about 8 or 10 lies in the textbooks, their best evidence. I tore them all down. He said, now, folks, Kent Hovind is right. These things aren't true. But, he said, Hovind, if you take all this out of the textbook, what are you going to replace it with? I said, now, folks, excuse me here, sir. Folks, what he's trying to not say is, we don't have any evidence for our theory except evolution, except lies. And if you take the lies out, we don't have anything, so you got to find evidence for my theory. I said, sir, if you don't have evidence for your theory, get a new theory. Give it up. There is no evidence for evolution. None. If you think there's some, I'll debate anybody on that. Tell you what, I'll take 10 at a time on. If I get half the time, and we talk about one topic at a time, they go first, give the best evidence for evolution. I'll go second. They want to take 12 minutes, I get 12 minutes. No interruptions, no cursing. I do it on my channel, their channel, your channel. I just am sick of them lying to our students.
I've noticed it's hard to get them to do that and give you your time without any cursing or interruption, because they're so used to having a monopoly on the presentation.
Right. Well, in front of their students, they've got an obvious academic advantage. Yeah. You know, they're going to give the kid a grade, and that might affect his career for life. They've also got a psychological advantage. Wow, he's the doctor. He must know. So they got an academic and a psychological advantage. They don't have that over me. They can't fail me. They can't fire me. They can't fool me.
So what are parents to do if their kids are being taught this? How do we remedy this in our public school system? And how do we get the proper information in front of our kids?
I would say, first, if possible, get them out. Private school, homeschool, no school is better than what they're learning. And many public school teachers would agree with me. The system is corrupt. My brother helped me come to the Lord. He taught 35 years public school. My mother retired teaching public school. The system is unfixable in the short term. Get them out. Don't let them burn down with the schoolhouse. But if you can't, don't send them in there unarmed. Many teachers and students call me and say, man, I got a student, one guy called me and said, I teach biology and I teach evolution. And this one guy, the guy called me and said, my daughter always stops the guy from teaching evolution. I said, excuse me, sir, that's not true. So the teacher called the dad and said, look, I'm going to have to quit teaching this stuff until your daughter gets out of my class. My first thought was, yay. And then I thought, why are we sending students off to war?
Yeah.
The parents ought to be fixing this battle, not the students.
And so the ammunition you need is in all of these videos, which we encourage everyone to get. Again, the link is in the description. And we can't thank you enough, Dr. Hovind, for the work that you've done over the years. What's next for you and for your ministry?
What's next? I'd like to build a miniature Noah's Ark here on our we have 140 acres. If I get a whole bunch of money, I want to build the world's biggest dinosaur.
Wow.
Right now, world's biggest dinosaur is in Alberta, Canada. They're 82 feet tall in a town of 3,000 people. They've got 375,000 visitors a year.
That's amazing.
I think Lenox, Alabama ought to have the biggest dinosaur. So we're working.
Well, you've had people from North Carolina do all kinds of stuff to be a blessing to your ministry. If you're watching this and you'd like to support that, go to drdino.com and partner with them to help make this possible.
Yeah. Come on down, visit. It's all free. We got 25 cabins you can stay in. We feed them and house them. After 2 days, we put them to work. We now have, if you go on drdino.com, D-R-D-I-N-O, we have an app you can get. We're having our own TV station. We're on a bunch of channels, Genesis Baptist Church on YouTube and a whole bunch of channels. Go to drdino.com.
Well,
it's all listed right
if you're
there.
watching this and you feel the grip of doubt that's been injected into your life loosening and you've been questioning God, and this has been the thing that's pushed you over the edge, all you have to do is give everything over to Jesus. Trust in him for your eternal salvation. Make that decision today, and you'll be glad that you did.
Yeah,
reach out to us, reach out to drdino.com, and we'd be happy to help you with any resources that we have to be a blessing to you. Dr. Kent Hovind, thank you so much.